some information about graduate studies here at A&T. But you know, I think we're all very excited about the opportunity for our own A&T undergraduates. If you come here to A&T for graduate school, or if you go, you know, to another research university for graduate school, we consider that a win. So I'm going to, you know, talk about that from that perspective here today. So let me just get a quick show of hands, because I don't know much about the specifics of this program. How many folks here are seniors? Juniors, so 3 juniors. Okay, that's like 5 sophomores, freshmen. Okay, anybody else other that doesn't fall in any one of those categories? that's why I asked. Where are you? Finished your bachelor's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Start my master's in the fall.
You started your master's in the fall. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so a lot of this might be kind of a recap for you, but some may apply if you're considering going on to the PhD, you know, as well. So let me do a couple of things. I've given you the slides there as a handout because I think. And tell me a little bit, when they met with some of the other speakers, have you guys talked about like the components of a graduate school application already? No. Okay.
It's more about funding. Was it more about funding?
Talk about funding.
I know she just said something about being personal, like when you're applying, give more like your personality in the application, and don't just be like strictly business, so they can give a feel of like who you are.
Okay. Okay. Good. I don't have a whiteboard. Got that back there. That's okay. That's all right. Okay, good. So, sort of the roadmap that I've given in this slide presentation for you today is kind of like if you think back when you were going to apply to college. You know, did you start applying to college or thinking about applying to college senior year? Did you think about it before that? Yeah. You probably thought about it before that. I mean, I'm not saying you can't start thinking about it senior year, though, but usually for a big commitment like going to college or going to graduate school, it's kind of like buying a car. You know, you're going to do a lot of research ahead of time before you actually maybe walk into the car dealership, and you know, you already have an idea actually. And mostly, you probably, you know, surf on the web, take a look at some apps or something, and you've got a general idea already. But generally, you're thinking about it for a while. And I think it's sort of the same thing with graduate school. You might start thinking about it, you know, as an undergraduate student, and then develop a strategy over those couple of years you know, along the lines of what should I be doing on each step of the way to get there. So what I've given you is a little bit of that roadmap. For those of you that are still underclassmen, you know, we talk mostly about freshman and sophomore year, and we talk about all the years in 4 domains: establishing academics, building skills that are relevant to going to advanced graduate study, networking, and then you know, of course, getting accepted, right? But largely for both freshman and sophomore years, if that's where you're at, the main thing, some of the biggest obstacles that we find in making the jump from, you know, going from an underclassman to an upperclassman, junior, senior, is building solid academic skills, right? Particularly in your ability to write and your ability to think analytically, right? So your courses that you're choosing, major that you select is really, really important at this point. And the overall objective ought to be to at least maintain a pretty solid GPA. What do you guys think is the minimum GPA most research universities look for when you're finished with your bachelor's? 3.5, 3.3, and 3.5, 3.3 is really good, especially in the sciences. The sciences, STEM areas, you guys hear about STEM, right? Those are areas where there's not much grade inflation. So research universities, most graduate programs know that, you know, even as low as a 3.0, which is generally kind of the printed minimum that you'll see. Usually a 3.0 is better than a 3.0, say, in a non-STEM area, because they know there's not a lot of grade inflation in STEM. So really, as freshmen and sophomores, you really want to be focusing on trying to explore what your major is, and then doing well in those either general education or foundational courses that will lead towards the major selection. And then hopefully, by the end of your sophomore year, you should have a major chosen. That's really kind of some of the best foundation you can have in getting started in your college career and getting set up academically for graduate school. Starting to network, right? Everything you'll hear pretty much in your academics and in your professional career is going to focus around being able to work well in teams and with people. So you can start to explore some of your skills in those areas by getting in study groups, right? Being active in student organizations or clubs. Those are good personal skills. Somebody talked about getting your personality, exploring your personality, and developing good interpersonal skills. Those are good places as an undergraduate student in your freshman and sophomore year to begin to develop that skill set. Any questions about either freshman or sophomore year? I'm gonna kind of go at a high level view through those. Does this make sense? Right? Okay, for those that are juniors, the upperclassmen, juniors and seniors, which is largely the majority, or at least sort of the majority in the room. In these areas of building skills, you really are taking a really good step by doing the REU experience. Because this is probably going to be a key opportunity for you to do a couple of things. One, work on a specific research project with a faculty member, right? Probably here and probably at your home school, right? Is there some connection, I would imagine? How did you find A&T? What made you choose A&T for your research undergraduate experience? Anybody?
My school sent out a list of research opportunities.
Okay.
Go through a link, and I just started applying to it.
Okay. So somebody at your school, right, pushed that information to you. Anybody have a different experience?
One of my friends just sent me a website with a bunch of internships on it, and this was the first one that I heard back from.
Awesome. So peers, right? And that's really key. That's really key. Peers, the peer network. That's what networking is all about, right? You're doing this. You're visiting potential choices for graduate school, right? Just by leaving your own institution and coming to A&T for this summer. The people that you're working with, in terms of networking, hopefully by the end of this experience, you will have had some engagement with them that they might be able to write a good letter of recommendation for you when you're ready to apply to graduate school. Because you've worked really closely with this person on an intellectual topic that's of interest to them and to you. They've had a chance to see you in a lot of different domains, in the laboratory, out of the laboratory probably this summer. Got a chance to see you interacting with other team members in the lab. Probably got a chance to see your writing skills, your analytical thinking skills, your communication skills. A lot of rich information that an opportunity to get rich information for a possible recommendation letter for whoever's lab you're working in, or whoever's directing your research study experience this summer through the RAU experience. Which goes to this, in terms of getting accepted. So undergraduate research can be sort of the feather in the cap, or really, I used to say, when I used to work with undergraduate students, used to say, you probably put yourself in probably the 96th, 97th percentile undergraduate students who have a leg up in getting admitted to graduate school just by doing summer research. Think about it. If you think about all your peers, how many others are doing what you're doing this summer? I bet very few, right? Very few people will take the time out of their summer as a college student to forego maybe, making more money, doing something, fun or enjoyable. Not that this isn't fun, but very few people will self-select themselves to do what you're doing, right? So that's a really huge investment, which can translate to beginning to write personal statements. So, as a junior or even as a senior now, rising seniors, your ability to leverage how long are you guys here for? How many weeks are you ready to?
10 total.
10 total? 10 weeks?
Yes.
Okay, wow, cool. So 10 weeks. 10 weeks you're
They
investing.
have what, one more?
One
Yes.
And one left?
1.5.
Yep.
Oh, wow. That is a long time. Good for you guys. That's awesome. That is great. I didn't realize it was that long. I just thought it was maybe 4 or 5 weeks. But that's great. I mean, that's a significant chunk of time. And what a great way to capture this experience in your personal statement. So the personal statement, as you all know, is an essay, basically. Usually 1 to 2 pages long that pretty much every graduate program, no matter what field you're going into, whether it's a basic science field, engineering field, mathematics, every graduate program is going to ask you for a personal statement. You'll hear it maybe referred to as a statement of purpose, but it's only talking about 2 things. What are your professional interests, right? And what are your academic interests? And then it's going to answer the question, why do you want to come to our graduate program? So if you start to reflect on what this 10-week experience means for you, both academically and personally, academically and professionally, you will have the beginnings of a very good story to tell. And don't be confused about the title, personal statement. Yes, it needs to be sort of personalized, but really it's just a story that you want to be able to tell that talks about your professional and your academic capabilities and your interests going forward. And research, undergraduate research experience opportunities, to me, are a great way to exemplify how committed you are to graduate school. Okay? So, any questions about upperclassmen and preparing for graduate school? Okay. Maybe what I'll do is I'll transition a little bit. So all of this stuff, really, I was asked to talk a little bit about fellowships, but I want to think about fellowships more as how do I pay for graduate school, right? How can I finance? How can you finance, right? How can one finance going to graduate school? For those that are interested, again, in like science, technology, engineering, and math, I believe you all are. There's 2 ways to really think about graduate student aid at the graduate level. And I've listed them up here. Probably 95% of the aid is what's called merit-based student aid, usually in what's called an assistantship or a fellowship. You'll hear both of those referred to. Both of them are the same in that that's not money you have to pay back, not loans. Okay, they're grants, and they're based on not on need but on merit. There are need-based graduate student aid, which is the second type, usually in the form of student loans, sometimes in the form of college work study or in the form of college work study funds. Very few graduate students, I think, participate in it, but it is available through the federal student aid program. But the majority of it at the graduate level in terms of need-based is loans. Now, I'm going to spend most of the time talking about merit-based student aid. And I told you that there are both fellowships and assistantships. The fellowships and assistantships are found on the campus at an individual university, and then those that are called outside fellowships, which are awarded by foundations, government agencies, some corporations. Okay. University-wide fellowships are generally for, let me talk just first about the fellowship. So a fellowship is a scholarship. Then have to be paid back. It's awarded based on merit. But generally, a fellowship has no work requirement with it. Right? It means that as a graduate student, you're awarded. Usually, it'll cover some tuition, if not all of it. It may come with a stipend, which is basically like a salary in a way, some monetary and monthly support to help you get through graduate school without any work requirement. Right? Many graduate students are working as teaching assistants or as laboratory assistants. Those are usually the two main types, in addition to receiving some form of award for their work. The fellowships are designed to award students so that they can really focus only on their studies and give them flexibility to make relationships with particular faculty members, maybe in the department or in the lab, to allow them the freedom to pursue particular topics that are of interest to them, right? And then eventually they might get picked up by a professor to work in that lab. That's the beauty of the fellowship. Many fellowships have no, like I said, no full-time work requirement. And yeah, so I kind of covered all those. At A&T, we do have a few fellowships that I'll review with you really quick. Our sort of longest standing one is called the Title III Fellowship that covers these fields that are listed here. This is a little outdated. We now have the Energy and Environmental Systems program. It's called Applied Science and Technology now. But you can see they cover almost all the STEM areas, and they do cover all the STEM doctoral programs that we have. Students have to be admitted to the PhD program first in order to qualify for the fellowship. And you can see the dollar amounts there that we award them for. Question, yeah?
Around how many fellowships, Title III, do you guys give out annually?
Yeah, I want to say right now we have there's about 50 total that are at the university, including continuing students. But it's probably around, I'd say 8 to a dozen new students a year, right, that get awarded. So these are pretty competitive.
And so does it only last 2 years, or say you don't graduate in more?
Great question. So Title III, the Title III fellowship, which I just lost, that covers every year that you're here, okay? But it has to be renewed each year because it's based on what your academic standing. You have to remain in good standing. I was trying to skip through to a website to show you, yeah, I'll pull it up here, our other fellowships at A&T that are available in addition to, this is our graduate college homepage. And if you just click on financial information and then university funding opportunities, right there, bam, it'll list all the fellowship programs that A&T offers. And you'll see there's a Chancellor's Distinguished Fellows. Oh, that's really cool. I don't get out very often. So yeah, you can just click on those. You can just click on those and it'll give you all the eligibility requirements and how to apply and how they work. But generally with these fellowship programs or these fellowship awards, they're really encouraged to get new students to come into the university. So as you're applying to A&T, definitely apply early and And you'll find that, this will give the dollar amounts, but the way that these are awarded is the faculty and the programs will like handpick, they'll nominate their best, their top admins for these awards. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like, you send your application in, the faculty in the department look at who their top admins are, and then they submit them to the graduate college. Then they nominate their students to the graduate college. And then there's another committee that looks at all the different applicants and then picks who gets awarded.
Does the students here for undergrad, are they top priority?
No, no. A&T we recruit students from all over the world, to be honest. So what I will say this. So what do faculty look? Who decides who gets in? Faculty do. What do they use to decide who gets in? Your application. Critical pieces of the application are the personal statement, because that's really, think about it, the only way you can talk about who you are, the only way you can meet other people who are reviewing your application is through what you write. The only thing that they'll see will be your undergraduate record, your test scores, maybe GRE or GMAT or GRE, and they'll see letters of recommendation. The narrative that you want to leave with them is probably in that personal statement, which, think about your REU experience is a great picture to say, I spent 10 weeks at A&T, loved the campus, had a chance to work with Dr. So-and-so, think that this is a program based on, my intellectual interest, what I worked on in the lab. I think this is a fit for me. That's a great narrative that, all other things being equal, like, your academic record really puts you in a different place when you have people applying maybe from all over the world who actually maybe haven't yet had a chance to visit A&T. Might be very capable, but now you've got a more personalized connection to the institution. I think that goes a big way. That goes a long way when you talk to that. Maybe the person you're working with right now, who's your mentor right now, writes a letter of recommendation for you. Maybe that person's on the admission committee. You don't know.
Around what time would you start applying for fellowships?
The deadline for these is February 1, so that's the winter, before the fall that you come in. So February 1, 2019 will be the deadline to apply. That's what we call our priority deadline. Okay? Any questions about fellowships? The cool thing about these, I'll click on this, let's say computer science. What you'll see here is it says, as long as this is what you get awarded for the first year, $20,000 stipend plus in-state tuition. Out-of-state students are eligible for additional tuition support, blah, blah, blah. But it basically says that when you're awarded one of these fellowships, the university is committed to supporting you for the following years. Not guaranteed, it's based, of course, on your academic, continued academic progress. But generally, most research universities, when they bring in a student, they want that student to finish. All this is saying is, your first year, you're covered, and your department will cover you in the next couple of years. And those are things you want to look for when you're applying to graduate school. Going to a PhD program, just a note, this is just my 10 cents, you should not have to pay. It's a little different than undergraduate, because you're pretty much going to be sort of part graduate student and part colleague. A graduate student, you're really a colleague with others working in the labs. So you're compensated for that, which means your education should be, if not 100% covered, then covered significantly. Yeah.
Okay, so the 15,000, would that go straight to your tuition, or that go to me myself?
If it says stipend, that goes right to you.
Okay.
Divided by 9 months in a year, and that goes right to you.
Okay.
Yeah, unless it says otherwise. But we spell that out here. That's a stipend. Okay, good question. Let me just circle back. So I'm just trying to highlight the connection between your research experience and fellowships, because fellowships are kind of like my son, he likes, NBA 2K. You guys know what that is? NBA, whatever, 2018. It's like a basketball,
Yeah.
Xbox, PlayStation. He's really into that. And, when I watch him, it's kind of like, it's like, oh, Dad, this guy's going to get a catch and shoot badge. I'm like, what is that? Oh, if he's really good at something, he gets a badge for it. It's like a gold standard, in a particular skill area. Fellowships are the gold standard, right? Fellowships are the gold standard when it comes to financing graduate education. They're very prestigious. National Science Foundation has very prestigious graduate fellowships. And the way that you compete for those, and students from all over the country competing for them, the way you compete for those is you take time to write a good personal statement. The same personal statement that you write for graduate school here, a lot of it will translate right to the NSF application. And you're writing about your research interests and your research experiences, right? So, the gold standard in financing graduate education is a fellowship, whether you get it from a specific individual institution like A&T or you get it from the outside. If you get an NSF fellowship, it's portable. That means if you decide to go to A&T or you decide to go to NC State or you decide to go to Duke or you decide to go to, if you get into multiple places, wherever you choose to enroll, that's where the portable fellowship follows you, right? And so we've listed on our website some of these outside funding sources, and many of them offer fellowships. In the sciences, there's the GEM consortium. Anybody a GEM fellow or GEM student? Check that out. It's an opportunity there to gain access to a network that's nationally looking to put undergraduates into graduate school. And these are just some of the other, I think, STEM-related agencies that offer fellowships. I grabbed these off of our website. You can go back to that page I was showing you guys before on our financial information page and find a lot more. We're continually updating it. Yeah.
And I'd just like to make note, there have been several students, undergraduate students here at A&T who received the GRFP. And one of the strategies that they use, he's probably going to talk about it too, is that they work with the Writing Center at their campus. We have, I know one of the most recent was one who is at Duke. So he carried a GRFP with him to Duke. And because of his academic record, he also received funding from the research faculty. So in essence, I think he was receiving something like $60,000 per year in fellowships, which meant he didn't have to pay a dime back. And so we've had others. We had one who was an engineering major. She received a Mitchell Fellowship, which she studied in Ireland. And then she had GRFP. So she used her Mitchell first, and then she went to, I forgot where she is, to use her GRFP to finish up her PhD. So when he's talking to you about the prestige of those type of fellowships, it is very competitive, as he said to you. It's very competitive, but don't be intimidated, because we know several students who have been successful in receiving not only those, but others from A&T and other institutions.
Great point. Yeah, don't be at all intimidated. Again, think about yourself in the 98th percentile of undergraduates. Nobody's doing what you're doing right now. And if you're not keeping a little journal, I would just start doing that. Just journal, in your device, what have been some of the highlights for yourself this past summer? Because honestly, when it's time to apply to graduate school, that's what the questions are going to be. Everyone want to know, what'd you learn from this? I think another thing that often I don't think we hear about a lot is, what don't you know? I mean, that's why you're gonna go to graduate school. You haven't got it all figured out. You know, it's good to be confident, but at the same time, you want to be a little bit humble and say, you know, I'm not sure about that, but you've got the background already. You're gonna get an undergraduate degree in a domain area, right? So you've got the background already, but there's still questions that you want to pursue in that field. And I think that's where, you know, I think when faculty see that, they see, yeah, this is somebody who's actually motivated, that wants to grow, right? You know, my field, my doctorate's in education, so I'm always about, you know, I'm not like a, you know, my kids are like, well, what kind of doctor are you? I'm like, well, you know, if you get hurt, I can't fix your arm or anything, but I'm like a teaching and learning doctor. So I'm really interested in learning, right? And learning starts with what? A little bit of tension. When there's something you don't know, right? When there's something you don't know, that creates a little bit of tension, right? But then it becomes like driving a car. My goal as an educator is to get you to that level where you've got that sort of unconscious competence, right? When you first learned to drive a car, you had to think about, okay, I get behind the wheel, I gotta put the car in gear, right? Those things didn't come naturally. Now, what do we do when we drive? We do everything except think about driving, right? Because it's second nature, right? But that's learning, right? So it's the same kind of concept, I think, when you're thinking about growing in your professional field as a STEM undergraduate researcher, you know, soon to be professional, growing professional. You're basically emerging professionals. Okay. What else? Here and then. Okay. Go ahead.
Sure. What is your take on like the programs where you can get like a master's and a BS in 5 years? Like I know A&T has a few of those. My home university has several of them.
Yeah.
I guess what is your take on that?
I think they're great because you're saving money. Basically, 2 degrees in maybe 5 years instead of 6 and 7. I think that they offer a good amount of opportunity for you to see what graduate school is like while you're still an undergraduate. Because typically those programs will allow you while you're still an undergraduate to start taking the graduate courses. I know here at A&T, we, some of them aren't approved yet, but when they're on the books, and basically we say, look, you've got to be like a sort of a really good junior, 3.5 in the major, you know, to show that you're ready to take graduate classes, right? And I think that's a really good first step. There's a big difference between the graduate class, the graduate seminar, and an undergraduate class. Graduate classes are going to be smaller, and you know, typically the professors are expecting the students to lead the discussion, right? Do the reading and come and lead the discussion. You learn from each other, and so I think that's a real good. I think it's a real good way, you know, to get the 2 degrees in less amount of time. But then also, you know, it might give you an opportunity to actually get out there maybe in industry a little sooner to see, you know, do I want to keep going? Maybe I want to go back and do a doctoral degree, right? It gives an opportunity if you catch the research bug, right? You might say, you know, I got my master's degree and I really like the research bug. I want to keep going, and you can go right back into your doctorate. So yeah, I'm a big fan of those. A real big fan. You know, so point of advice: if you don't have it yet, you want to have, and I wish I had this when I was going to graduate school. Don't have 3 professors from your current undergrad study that you think can write you an absolutely outstanding letter of recommendation. Start working on that right away. Don't get to senior year, you know, a couple weeks before graduation and say, I don't know anybody. Have those folks now. Start cultivating those relationships. Okay? Start cultivating. I wish I had done that. I was the person scrambling around my senior year. And fortunately, our university, they had this whole system set up where you could they could write the letter for you and then file it away, and then you could come back later. because faculty won't, thousands of students. They may remember you, they may not, but they'll definitely, if there's something on file, a year or two, you come back later that they can reference, they're glad to do a recommendation letter for. You had a question?
That was my question.
Oh, that was your question, okay. Anything else? In terms of funding, applying to graduate school? I took 7 years between undergraduate and graduate school. And the year when I decided, and I knew I was going to go back, but I just couldn't figure out what exactly do I want to study? Because graduate school is pretty narrow, right? There's no general courses, general education courses, kind of like you hit the ground running. So I thought, if I'm going to go back, I got to really like the subject that I'm going to go in for, because that's a real expensive career exploration process to go through. But the year I got in, and I went back to my master's degree first. The year I got in, I was working at a college, and I was like, hey, I really like this. I really like, working. And I've only been doing this for about, a little more than a year. I think I would like to get a little bit more experience before I actually go back to graduate school. If that makes sense. So I got in and I deferred a year. I actually applied pretty late. I applied late spring, and they admitted me for the fall. And I said, you know what, I want to take one more year before I come back. And the good thing that happened was I applied, I was admitted too late, because it was in April I applied, and their deadline for these fellowships was February. So it was too late for me to get any funding. So I said, I'm going to defer a year to get more work experience. But what actually ended up happening was I was too late for funding that year, but I was real early for the next year, because I was already admitted. So the next year, I actually got a fellowship. It was called the Administrative Fellows Fellowship. Kind of redundant, right? But, and that really helped pay for a lot of my master's degree. But that happened because I took time. I had now 12 months, well, not 12, but 6, 7 months to prepare to look for financial resources to go to graduate school. So I guess the point of my experience and my story is the earlier you can start with this, I think the more likelihood you'll have to find some success, because there's a lot of interest in supporting students, especially students in STEM, and especially students that already have some research experience.
Could you talk a little bit about fit in terms of institutional cultures?
Yes, great question. So, yeah. So, pretty much every university is made up of smaller departments. As a graduate student, your home and your world will largely be in that department, like where the lab is, where the building maybe that the courses in the department are taught in. That's kind of your home. When you're an undergraduate, it's sort of like the campus is your home, wherever the football game is, or wherever the student union is. It's like the whole campus is your home. But for graduate students, it's really more narrow. And so it is pretty important, and very important, that you feel welcome, that you feel like this is a place where I can sacrifice my life, because you will. You're going to study there, you're going to work there, you're going to eat there, you're going to, cry on shoulders with your other graduate students, during that time. That's your home, the department. So going to a campus to visit it, I think pays a lot of rewards because now you should read that field. Like, can you see yourself here? Do you feel welcome here? Do you feel like, do you feel like you can add something here? I think fit's important, but I also think you also want to see, is this somewhere I can add something? Because if you want to fit in, but you also want to come away knowing I'm better and I'm different than I was when I came in. And you should know that that's a program that's going to push you that way. One way to gauge it, I would say, is if there are multiple professors that you feel like you can connect with in that department, I think that's a really good sign. Generally, usually there's one really esteemed professor maybe in your field that's at that institution. That's maybe researching the exact same things you're interested in. And I think that's good, but I think it's also, you want to look at not only that professor, you want to look at students who are in the program, graduate students who are in the program right now. How do they feel about working with that professor? Who's graduated from the program? How are they doing? Do they have positive things to say? Is that program graduating a lot of their students? Are those PhD students, if they're around there 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, that's not a good sign. You want to see that the master's students are getting in and out in like 2 years, 3 years. The PhD students are graduating in 4 years, 5 years. Those are good signs that they're student welcoming, right? Take a look at their graduate college. I work in an office called the Graduate College, and which is kind of like a central student services office, kind of, for graduate students that's not in your program. If that graduate college has a lot of good resources like professional development workshops like we have on, how to improve your writing skills, or how to interview well, right? Things that you're going to need, not just to get in, but also maybe to start preparing for your life after graduate school. If the university and the graduate college is offering those kinds of things, I think those are great. That's another really good fit, because now you're finding, I got a fit in my department, but I also have a fit at the university, maybe with people who aren't necessarily in my department, but you got other contacts and a network that we talked about earlier of other students and staff and faculty outside of your program that are there to support your effort as a graduate student. I think that's a really good fit. And if any of you ever have any questions about that, I'd be glad to tell you about some other universities. I'm not going to make too much of a plug. A&T is definitely one of them. And they vary by field. So, talk to your professors, and as they list those schools, if you want to bounce any of them off me, I'm glad to share. But we're in a network of other graduate universities across the country that share best practices. A&T does. And so we're always, trying to be on the forefront of what's the best we can do to get our graduate students not just in, but out and achieving at a high level. Those are the places that we really want. We want to see our graduate students at. You guys are really the future. I mean, all these big questions that are plaguing our country and our world. I'm really excited to see the type of work you guys are doing, because I'm getting old, and you guys are gonna have to take care of me. I'm just kidding. But those are really important questions that we want the best minds and the brightest minds to be able to tackle, for society. So, and I'm in the business of putting people in graduate school, so I'm a little biased. What else, if anything? That was pretty good. Any burning questions that you don't want to ask your mentor, your professor? I promise it'll stay here. Yeah.
I want to go to grad school, but I'm debating, is it is it worth it? Is it worth me like taking 2 years to go back to school? Like, is the pay worth it? So like, what's the best way? I feel like when I talk to people like at schools, I feel like they're biased a little bit. It's like, what's the best way to like to find that out?
Great question. Department of Labor Statistics, they'll broadly tell you that your earnings over a lifetime are going to be higher with a graduate degree. You're going to, from an economists talk about, what they talk about, trade-offs. You're going to have a trade-off because the time that you're in graduate school, you're probably not going to be, if you're going full-time, you're not going to be, there's no income, right? But you're investing, you're making an investment over the lifetime in earnings. Now, I would say that's broadly speaking. It's going to vary by field. And so I would encourage you to get different streams of information, different advice from different individuals in your field, right? In terms of master's degree, doctorate degree, in my field, what I want to do professionally, when's the right time to do that? I'm an advocate of, if you can do graduate school like earlier in life, the better, because one thing that doesn't change is life goes on while you're in graduate school. People get married, people have children in graduate school while they're trying to write dissertations. Life does not stop. And so I guess the lesson from that is there's really never a perfect time to go to graduate school, right? But the old saying says the higher the risk, the higher the reward. And I mean, it is documented, your earnings will be higher. The other thing that's going to be higher is this. You're with additional academic training, you're going to have a mindset and a mentality and a capability intellectually to handle things within an organization or within a corporation or within any organization that others may not have simply because of your academic training, right? Your ability to lead other people, because people are not very predictable, let's put it that way. And so your ability, if you have an advanced degree, to handle that sort of uncertainty and know how to put all those factors together to make a decision to help move the organization forward, to help move a team forward, those are things that those are responsibilities that managers and leaders in organizations are going to give to those who have demonstrated that you took time for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you took time to invest in yourself, right? You took time to invest in yourself, which is different than somebody saying, I would like a raise just because I've been here longer. How about, I went and I really invested in this field on my dime, on my time, and I think this is what I can contribute to the organization. That's a really different set of decisions that somebody's got to make, right? On two candidates. I'm just going to be frank about it. It doesn't mean all the time that degrees translate to things that open doors immediately. But over the long run, it will. It definitely will. Is that good? Good question. Dr. Williams, I think I don't want to steal any time, but
No other questions?
no other questions. I want to say I really appreciated the time to get the chance to talk with you guys. And you've got the materials there. If you ever have any questions about A&T, graduate school here at A&T, or just otherwise, I'm glad to speak with any of you guys. And wish you well in the remaining time here. Thank you so much for having me.
By way of announcement, you are aware that you have the pistol SAS on Friday? So that you'll probably receive information from Dr. Long on that?
Really?
You got the email already?
No.
To know where to meet and all that?
No.
What time and all that?
No.
Okay, I touched it.